Hello, this is George.
And Bonnie.
Mwah. And this is Adonai's Sanctuary of Truth Classroom. This is a bonus. Well, we'll be on ship next week, so this is 2 for in 1 week, and then we'll be back in 2 weeks. We'll be gone. Hope you're not. Anyway, you ready?
Yep, let's go.
We're going over what's stated in Bereshit, or Genesis, 29 and 30. We see that seems to be a lot of trickery going on. Jacob knew which way he was traveling, northeast, looking for the area known as Haran. About a 400-mile journey because of the deceiving he did to Isaac, his father, and his brother Esau. His mother, Rebekah, figured a way to keep her favorite son safe. That was to get her husband, Isaac, to send him to his uncle to get a wife there. Jacob sees Rachel is a very good-looking woman and falls for her from the beginning. See, in the first part there, Jacob waters the sheep Rachel brought to the well and goes back to her father's home. My sweetie's going to read 29:13 of Bereshit.
When Laban heard the news of Jacob, his sister's son, he ran to him, hugged him, and kissed him, and brought him to his house. Jacob told Laban all that had happened.
Jacob told Laban what had happened. When Laban heard the story, he said, "Now, do you really think Jacob told the whole story?" Now, as we go through this, we kind of think he did, because of what Laban says in verse 14. All of 14. Read 14, please.
Laban said to him, "You are indeed my own flesh and blood," after Jacob had stayed with him for a whole month.
Here's an interesting thought. Did he hear the trickery and the deceit by his sister, Rebekah, and her son Jacob? Then could have said, "Yep, you're just like us. You act like we do. Of course," Scripture puts it, "you are indeed my own flesh and blood." Do you know what Laban could have stated was, "You're a rookie at trickery. I'll show you the master if you stay with us long enough and for a while." We'll find that out later. The last part of 29:14 says, Jacob spent a month at Laban's home, and Laban asked, read 15, please.
Laban said to him, "Why should you work for me for nothing, just because you are my relative? Tell me how much I should pay you." That was 15, right?
That's 15. Laban might as well have asked it, "While you're hiding, why work for nothing? Just because you're my relative, tell me how much pay you want." No, 16 and 17, please.
Now Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the older was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. Leah's eyes were weak, but Rachel was good-looking with beautiful features.
To us, then it becomes interesting. Older daughter Leah not as good looking as Rachel, the younger daughter. Rachel caught Jacob's eyes instantly. 29:18, please.
Jacob had fallen in love with Rachel and said, I will work for you 7 years in exchange for Rachel, your younger daughter.
I'll work 7 years for the hand of Rachel to be my wife. That agreement was like a gift for the father, because Laban would lose his daughter in the work she did. So Jacob didn't have a large amount of money, so he stated, I will work 7 years for a wife. We can tell that he was truly in love with Rachel. Read 29:20, please.
So Jacob worked 7 years for Rachel, and it seemed only a few days to him, because he was so much in love with her.
7 years seemed like a few days when he was truly in love. He was in love with Rachel. We heard that in 29:20. You just read that, right?
Mm-hmm.
How about reading 21, please?
Jacob said to Laban, Give me my wife, since the time is finished, so that I can start living with her.
My time of serving you is over. I want Rachel as my wife. He's waited long enough. Verse 22.
Laban gathered all the men of the place and gave a banquet.
What a banquet it must have been. So much celebration that, well, read 23 and they'll find out what happened.
In the evening he took Leah his daughter and brought her to Jacob, and he went in and slept with her.
It seems Jacob was drunk enough that he didn't even realize who he slept with. In the morning, he realized what Rachel's father had done. Read 24, please.
Laban also gave his slave girl Zilpah to his daughter Leah as her slave girl.
Laban used the same tactic as his sister would or had already done. In other words, they were both kind of deceitful. Laban also gave Leah a slave girl, Zilpah. Read 25, please.
In the morning Jacob saw that he was with Leah, and he said to Laban, What kind of thing is this that you've done to me? Didn't I work for you for Rachel? Why have you deceived me?
The interesting statement by Jacob was, Why did you deceive me? To us that was a strange question from a guy who did it twice to his own family. After all, Laban and Rebekah, Jacob's mother, were brother and sister, both deceivers to get what they wanted, teaching Jacob a lesson, you might say the hard way. I would imagine Jacob would be kind of angry, which would affect how he looked at his new wife, Leah, as well. Jacob goes to his uncle Laban and asks, Didn't I work for you 7 years for Rachel? Read 26, please.
Laban answered, In our place that isn't how it's done, to give the younger daughter before the firstborn.
In other words, I don't know how you do things where you live, but here the younger daughter doesn't marry before the firstborn. Now you know Jacob was thinking, why didn't you tell me that part of the agreement up front? Instead, you acted just like your sister, my mother, and me. When the shoe is on the other foot, I'm the one being deceived, and I didn't like it. Read 27, please.
Finish the marriage week of this one, and we'll give you the other one also in exchange for the work you will do for me during yet another 7 years.
Finish the marriage week of celebration. Perform your husbandly duties with Leah, and I'll give you that other one. It's kind of cute because he doesn't even state Rachel. I'll give you the other one, right? I'll give you the other one also. Of course, you'll have to work here for 7 more years. Laban gives a banquet for the firstborn, when she married yet for Rachel. It never says anything about a celebration. So Jacob finished the week with Leah and had the celebrations. And Laban kept his promise this time. So in reality, Jacob worked 7 years and 1 week, then he received what he wanted, Rachel, as his wife. 29:28, please.
Jacob agreed to this, so he finished her week, and Laban gave him his daughter Rachel as his wife.
Rachel also was given a slave girl, Bilhah. Read 29:30, please.
So not only did Jacob go in and sleep with Rachel, but he also loved Rachel more than Leah. Then he served Laban another 7 years.
Jacob must have showed his love for Rachel a lot more than any love for Leah. For this period of time, we would have to say that Jacob was being showed how much of a deceiving person his family and he was. After all, Jacob now was being shown how to deceive. Only this time it was on the one he was being the one taken advantage of. Read 31, please. 29:31.
Adonai said to Leah, Adonai saw that Leah was unloved, so he made her fertile, while Rachel remained childless.
So for the next 7 years, Jacob fulfilled his husbandly duties with both his wives. Only Leah started having children. First one was Reuben, which means first see a son in Hebrew. Read 32, please.
Leah conceived and gave birth to a son, whom she named Reuben, which means see a son. For she said, It is because Adonai has seen how humiliated I have been, but now my husband will love me.
Think about that. She thinks Adonai has seen how humiliated she was. Her humiliation, having a husband who showed her, most likely, no respect or actual love. She read that in 29:30. Jacob loved Rachel more than Leah. And then it says Leah conceived again, and her statement was 29:33.
She conceived again, gave birth to a son, and said, "It is because Adonai has heard that I am unloved. Therefore he has given me this son also." So she named him Simeon, which means hearing.
Adonai heard that I'm not loved. So this child, this one, I'll call Shimeon. In Hebrew it means hearing. She conceived even a third time, believing this time her husband will now join her, so she called him Levi, which actually means joining in Hebrew. All three were to attract her husband's, was actually to attract her husband's praise for having children for him. Well, then she conceived a fourth time. We like how her praise must have shifted from her husband. Read 35, please. 29:35.
She conceived yet again, had a son, and said, "This time I will praise Adonai." Therefore she named him Judah, is that right? Which means praise. Then she stopped having children.
She called him Judah. Judah in English, but in Hebrew it means praise. That's what my sweetie just read. Because she praised Adonai for this one. Then it says she stopped having children. Now our thoughts go to, here we go again. Sound familiar? Read 16:2, please.
So Sarah said to Abram, Hear now, Adonai has kept me from having children, so go in and sleep with my slave girl. Maybe I'll be able to have children through her." Abram listened to what Sarah said.
Sleep with my slave girl. Now 30, verse 1, please.
When Rachel saw that she was not bearing children to Jacob, she envied her sister and said to Jacob, "Give me children or I will die."
Now that's an interesting statement. Give me children or I will die, like he had that much to do about it. Read 30, verse 2.
She made Jacob angry. This made Jacob angry at Rachel. He answered, "Am I in God's place? He is the one who is denying you children."
Interesting statement. Am I in God's place? Then like in 16:2, read 16:2, please.
So Sarah said to Abram, "Hear now, Adonai has kept me from having children, so go in and sleep with my slave girl. Maybe I'll be able to have children through her." Abram listened to what Sarah said.
Now 30, verse 3.
She said, "Here is my maid Bilhah. Go sleep with her and let her give birth to the child that will be laid on my knees, so that through her I too can build a family."
Go sleep with my maid, the slave girl my father gave me, Bilhah. 13:4 states she gave her to be his wife. Read 34, please.
So she gave him Bilhah, her slave girl, to be his wife, and Jacob went in and slept with her.
She gave her to be his wife. Our question is, was she more of a concubine than a wife? Isn't that what Sarah did with Hagar? The primary purpose of a concubine was to give the husband sexual pleasure, to have additional children, although in most cases the children had very little privilege as heirs to his estate. Yet these slave girls' children would be known as part of the 12 tribes of Israel. In all reality, until I studied it, that thought never came to me. We never realized all that before. It seems that the two sisters were jealous of what the other one had. You might say back in 29:17. Read that, please.
Too far back. Leah's eyes were weak, but Rachel was good looking with beautiful features.
29:23.
In the evening he took Leah, his daughter, and brought her to Jacob, and he went in and slept with her.
29:28.
Jacob agreed to this, so he finished her week, and Laban gave him his daughter Rachel as his wife.
Now 29:30.
So not only did Jacob go in and sleep with Rachel, but he loved Rachel more than Leah. Then he served Laban another 7 years.
Now we know we went over all that before. But see, you have one having children that was like putting coals on the fire every time Leah was having children. We're not going to go through all the 12 yet. Listen to what 37 and 8 says.
Bilhah, Rachel's slave girl, conceived again and bore Jacob a second son. 7 and 8, right?
Mm-hmm.
Rachel said, I have wrestled mightily with my sister and won. And she called him Naphtali, means my wrestling.
It wasn't what Adonai had done. No, it was, I won, I won. Isn't that what she might as well have said? To us, something kind of strange happened then. 30 verse 14, please.
During the wheat harvest season, Reuben went and found mandrakes in the field and brought them to his mother Leah. Rachel said to Leah, Please give me some of your son's mandrakes, so that I can be fertile.
Reuben, Leah's son, came in from the field with a mandrake plant. The interesting thing is about mandrake is that word is used in every translation we read. Yet in the Hebrew, the word mandrake is apple love. And as far as we have been able to find, the word mandrake is a plant that people thought it had some magical powers. Mandrake is a poisonous plant. At times it was used as a medicine, for it had a narcotic substance. Yet by our studies, Rachel would have stated the words with the meaning apple love. She wanted a child. Which when you put two and two together, it would make more sense to ask for what they thought would be an apple love plant than for a narcotic. Now that was something that I have never heard any religious leader or preacher or priest ever point out or explain. Leah already had 4 children, and Jacob yet she states 30:15, please.
She answered, Isn't it enough that you have taken away my husband? Do you have to take my son's mandrakes too? Rachel said, Very well, in exchange for your son's mandrakes, sleep with him tonight.
Then in 16, Rachel gives her sister Leah the privilege to have sex with Leah's own husband. Read 16, please.
When Jacob came in from the field in the evening, Leah went out to meet him and said, You have to come and sleep with me, because I've hired you with my son's mandrakes. So Jacob slept with her that night.
I've hired you? That was her husband, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've hired you. She also stated you have to come and sleep with me. She hired her husband with her son's apple love. Talk about a strange situation. To us, it seems that Rachel put her faith in a narcotic, not Adonai, to get pregnant. It doesn't seem to have worked very well, though. 30:17 through 19, please.
God listened to Leah, and she conceived and bore Jacob a fifth son. Leah said, God has given me my hire, because I gave my slave girl to my husband. So she called him Issachar, which means higher reward. Leah conceived again and bore a sixth son to Jacob.
Rachel gets to love the apple love, and Leah has her fifth and sixth son. I thought, never mind. The apple love, well, anyway. 30:20, please.
Leah said, God has given me a wonderful gift. Now at last my husband will live with me, since I have borne him 6 sons. So she called him Zebulun, living together.
Now it seems like she thought that with 6 sons it would change things. Now because Leah bore him 6 sons, Jacob was or will then live with her. It says that was her belief, didn't it?
Mm-hmm.
She even called her 6 sons Zebulun, which means, like she said, living together. What was that? You think that was a hint to Jacob? Read 21, please. 30:21.
After this she gave birth to a daughter and called her Dinah, which means controversy over rights.
Now that's interesting. You never hear about Dinah. She doesn't even count in the 12 tribes. Read 22, please.
Then God took note of Rachel, heeded her prayer, and made her fertile.
Then, well, wait a minute. She traded for that apple love stuff, and her sister had 3 children after that. Maybe that stuff was very slow in its fertilizing stage.
Must have been.
Read 30, 23, and 24, please.
She conceived, had a son, and said, God has taken away my disgrace. She called him Joseph, which means may he add, saying, May Adonai add to me another son.
Finally, Jacob's favorite wife, Rachel, gave him his favorite son, Joseph. Read 30, verse 25, please.
After Rachel had given birth to Joseph, Jacob said to Laban, Send me on my way, so that I can return to my own place, to my own country.
Send me away to return to my own country. You have seen your daughter, your older daughter, give you grandsons, and now you have seen your younger daughter, her sister, Rachel, give you my favorite son Joseph. Let me present my mother, your sister, her grandchildren also. How many years did Jacob really work for Laban? It was quite a few. But just for 2 wives, we know it said, well, read 29:20 again, please.
So Jacob worked 7 years for Rachel, and it seemed like only a few days to him, because he was so much in love with her.
7 years for what turned out to be the older daughter, Leah. It turned out to be 7 years and 1 week to get both wives. And, he worked 7 years for his favorite wife, Rachel. So that's 14 years at least. And we find out he worked quite a bit longer than that. 29:30, please.
Nope, I lost 30. There it is. So not only did Jacob go in and sleep with Rachel, but he also loved Rachel more than Leah. Then he served Laban another 7 years.
Interesting. Another 7 years and a whole bunch of children, it seems to have happened then, because they must have had all those children in 7 years, because his time is up. Then now my sweetie's going to read 30 verse 22 again, please.
30?
22. You read that before, right?
Mm-hmm. Then God took note of Rachel, heeded her prayers, and made her fertile.
Yes, after the love apple and more children by Leah. Then Adonai made Rachel fertile. That is where Joseph came from. In 30:24, read 30:24.
She called him Joseph, may he add, saying, May Adonai add to me another son.
Joseph means in Hebrew, may he add to Rachel and Jacob's joy with Joseph. And then we need to study what happens next. And I wrote here, stop, because that's where we're going to pick up next time. I hope you understand some stuff that I didn't realize was in there. I hope you study yourself, and you can even read ahead to see what was going on or what happened. That way, you'll know everything I'm going to talk about. I hope you have a good week next week, and the end of this week. I hope the Lord blesses you, and I hope you have as much fun as we're going to on the ship and off the ship. God bless.
Yep. Have a great week, guys. See you in 2.
Bye.